Good, happy Wednesday evening. I'm Riley King, and welcome to the news with Riley King. Let's begin. First up, Utah political ad takes new approach to declare decency. Let's take a listen to that video from Good Morning America.
Two competing candidates from opposing parties running for governor in Utah joining forces. Eva Pilber has more.
Overnight, this unusual political ad going viral.
My name's Chris Peterson. And I'm Spencer Cox. And we approve this message.
Utah gubernatorial candidates Chris Peterson, a Democrat, and Spencer Cox, a Republican, releasing these videos together.
Well, I think you should vote for me. Yeah, but really you should vote for me. There are some things we both agree on. We can debate issues without degrading each other's character. We can disagree without hating each other.
The two competing for the same job, but wanting to take a public stand together when it comes to this election.
We are both equally dedicated to the American values of democracy, liberty, and justice for all people. We just have different opinions on how to achieve those ideals.
Senator Mitt Romney tweeting, applaud this joint effort to promote the Utah values and civil discourse during campaign season.
People are tired of the divisiveness of tearing people down, and that they really are longing for something better.
The thing that we need to recapture, a little less name-calling, a little less bickering, a little more problem-solving and courtesy.
And the two men say they have seen a little bit of backlash, but the response has been overwhelmingly positive. One person on Twitter declaring it the best political ad of 2020. Robin?
Many agree with that. How could the backlash? How do you have backlash
they're
from that?
talking to something very real out there. People are hungering for that.
They are. They really are, George.
It's proof. You can't please everybody.
Don't even try. Well, hey there,
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report, and that is right, you can't please everybody. ACLU filing. Parents of 545 separated migrant children still unable to be reached. Let's take a listen to that video from CBS This Morning.
Information on the Trump administration's impact on families trying to cross the U.S. southern border. Lawyers say they cannot find the parents of, listen to this number, 545 children after they were separated at the border. The children are now in U.S. custody, and some of them have not seen their parents in more than 3 years. Maria Villarreal reports on the efforts to track them down.
In the ACLU filing, lawyers say of the 1,030 separated migrant children, they still haven't been able to reach parents for 545 kids, and roughly 2/3 of those parents are believed to have been deported to their countries of origin. The children in question were separated before the Trump administration fully implemented its short-lived zero-tolerance policy.
I didn't like the sight or the feeling of families being separated.
It's been more than 2 years since President Trump ended that policy, which separated more than 2,800 children from their families at the southern border. A federal judge then required the administration to reunite children with their parents within 30 days, a deadline it did not meet.
Our advice on that wasn't sought out.
Scott Schuchart, a former Homeland Security official, told 60 Minutes in 2018 that one of the government's problems was tracking the families it separated. The ACLU filing offers more evidence of that claim, which was also confirmed by a November 2019 Inspector General report, citing widespread errors in the government's methods.
People were removed to other countries without there being good records of what adult went with what child.
In July 2018, we spoke with Bernardino Contreras Trejo and his daughter Fernanda. They were reunited 27 days after they'd been separated at the border. He told us officials at the border said, "You mean nothing. You don't have any rights here. We're going to take your daughter away." Did you know that it was possible? I didn't know that it was possible they could separate me from my kid, he said. As for Fernanda, he said that they treated her bad and scolded her.
How do you feel when you hear that?
Impotente.
Powerless, Trejo told us. A report issued by the Health and Human Services Department actually shows that children separated from their parents at the border were more likely to have higher levels of fear, abandonment, post-traumatic stress, and likely to consider self-harm or even suicide. And Gail, we have spoken with a number of these families and their children. They say there are some big psychological impacts that they will be dealing with for a very long time. Gail?
Maria, this is heartbreaking. We went to Texas at the time. Matter of fact, saw you there too. We saw those people with their families. Were there some bad eggs in the group? Maybe. But that's not what we saw. What we saw were desperate people trying to come here for a better life for their children or for themselves and to protect their children. I can't understand why there wasn't a system in place to keep track of the kids once they were separated from their parents. We wouldn't stand for this if somebody did this to American children. We would not stand for this. Do you happen to know how the system worked?
You know, Gail, I think a lot of this happened because the policy was implemented so quickly that the administration couldn't coordinate properly with all the federal agencies that were involved. I mean, you're talking about nearly a dozen of them that were impacted, from Border Patrol, DHS, to the Department of Health and Human Services that we just talked about right now. So I think the coordination was a very, very big issue. People were just caught off guard, and they didn't know and didn't have a tracking system in place.
It's heartbreaking. Should be all hands on deck to straighten this out. Thank you very much, Maria. Thank you very much.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Wow. Wisconsin facing massive spike in coronavirus cases. Let's take a listen to that video from NBC News.
Or after hour, cars snake around the parking lot outside Miller Park, the home of Major League Baseball's Milwaukee Brewers, now the area's newest COVID testing site.
We all want to get back to work and have life as normal as possible.
But as Wisconsin health authorities report more than 3,000 new coronavirus cases a day in the state, life is anything but normal here. We spoke with several drivers from a distance. 69-year-old Al Stazak and his wife were getting tested together.
I can't taste or smell, and I've got like a head cold, and I can't go back to work until it's cleared.
Frank Lockett is also feeling symptoms and has this warning.
This ain't no joke. It's killing people. All you gotta do is look at the numbers.
Right now, 82% of the hospital beds in Wisconsin are filled. Authorities have opened an emergency field hospital, but so far it's empty. Still, the chief medical officer of the state's largest hospital says this winter could be devastating.
There are really two areas that keep me up at night. One of them is around what potentially may happen as we begin to see more influenza-like illness, not just here in Wisconsin, but across the country. Beyond that, I think the bigger concern is what will happen in terms of the resilience of our team members and clinicians. This has gone on for a long time.
This morning, Carmen Lerma is fighting for her life in a Madison hospital. She was diagnosed with COVID in July and spent 45 days in the ICU.
It's like gasping for air. That's how bad it feels.
Her doctors now say the virus severely damaged her lungs. The 52-year-old needs a double lung transplant.
I always tell people, you know what? Even if you don't like the mask, wear it. It'll save someone else's life.
We expect another busy day at this testing site and also at polling places here in Wisconsin. Early voting begins today.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. And we're going to take a look at your U.S. stock market and see how your U.S. stock market did for today. And here's a look at that U.S. stock market for all of you. Your Dow Jones Industrial Average closed in the right of down. Your Nasdaq closed in the right of down. S&P 500 closed in the right of down. Gold closed flat. Oil closed flat. U.S. 10-year closed flat. Euro/USD closed in green or up. And VIX closed in the right of down. Stocks close slightly lower as coronavirus settlement talks continue. Stocks fell slightly on Wednesday as House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin continued their negotiations on a new fiscal settlement package. Here are the challenges facing Netflix after the company missed subscribers' expectations. Let's take a listen to that video from CNBC.
So Netflix's 2.2 million global net paid subscribers for Q3, that was about half of your estimate. Where's the disconnect?
I mean, the quarterly subscribers are extremely volatile. You really have to look at Netflix more on an annual basis in terms of subs, and they did only miss their guidance by 300,000 subscribers. I mean, the challenge that Netflix has at the moment is that they did almost a full year in the first half. The company added 26 million subscribers in the first half relative to 28 in the prior 2 years. And so they're dealing with the consequence, I think, of the after effects of the benefits of COVID. But you know, going forward, this company is still on a run rate to kind of do 25 to 30 million subscriber additions a year in the future after this little bumpy period they're going through right now.
Right. So to your point, do you think that the numbers for Q3 is largely a result of this pull forward that they saw in the first half of the year, or is it emblematic of a slowdown and the fact that they have this user base that's largely penetrated at this point?
It's a little of both. I mean, you have the fact that it's a very large company now. The company's going to exceed 200 million global subscribers at the end of this year, and so it's not the Netflix of old, the 50-bagger over the past decade post the Quickster debacle. But it's a very large company, and it's a blue chip company now, and it's transitioning to steady top line growth, 20-25% depending on price increases, with expanding operating margins and free cash flow generation. That's a different narrative than the Netflix of old, but it's still a quite positive one. And, while we have a hold rating on the stock, we're pretty constructive on it overall.
Yeah, but I wonder, is that a narrative that then argues for a lower multiple over time, Scott? I mean, again, nobody's arguing. Incredible success.
Yeah.
We almost describe it as TV now, but it doesn't necessarily mean if it's entering a period of slower growth that people aren't going to be willing to pay less for it.
I agree. I mean, I think it becomes more predictable from here. There's not any noticeable kind of optionality on the platform that one could conclude at the moment relative to other peers that are at similar points in their life cycle, say like an Alphabet. But so you have to be more valuation sensitive. I think the dream in terms of the upside to subscriber numbers, that's something that played out over the past 10 years. The next 10 years is going to be this steady growth, expanding margin story, which is going to lead to some multiple compression, which has already begun. But you're paying about 55 times forward earnings for a 20 to 25% grower with expanding operating margins. Not ridiculously valued, but I wouldn't argue it's cheap yet either.
Hey, Scott, social media remains under a lot of pressure regarding content moderation and perceptions of political bias. Evan's been pretty vocal about at least the president, and Snap no longer promotes his snaps, but how have they managed to fly under the radar on that front, and how long can that last?
Well, John Egbert on our team formally covers the social media stocks, but I could comment at a high level, which is that Snap is a closed community relative to some of the other social networks, so is much less prominent in these discussions. So I think that when you're talking about some of the issues that social media faces, it's more really a Facebook and Twitter issue. Snap isn't really part of that debate.
Shepard Smith.
Okay, and thank you for joining us for this evening edition of the news with Riley King. I'm Riley King. Have a great rest of your evening. See you back here tomorrow for another edition of the news with Riley King. Good night and goodbye, everyone.